Hey guys and girls, my name's Dan. Welcome back to The Forge. In this episode of Rough and Ready, we are going to drill a hole in a hammer blank and see if that works to make a hammer eye. We're also going to make some cheese on toast. I know this isn't cheese, and I know it isn't toast. And we're also going to play around with some charcoal.
Okay, this horrible mess is my coke forge, and I thought I'd just quickly go over some of the things I do to prepare my fire, and also talk about the kind of fuel I use and why I do certain things. A common question that get asked a lot is about the medium that's inside the forge, other than coke. Now, I used to put sand in, builder's sand into my fire, but I find that that creates a really horrible clinker. I'll be back with clinker. So this is clinker, and basically it's a byproduct of burning coal, and it's all of the unburnables and the waste material from the coke. It's often silica and then other stuff, but you also get some of the oxidization breakdown from your metal as well, which will create a little bit of clinker too. This stuff sticks to your metal and it's horrible, it's really annoying. And the better quality this is, I say quality even though it's rubbish, the better quality this is, the less likely this stuff sticks to your work, and also it forms a nice shield around your chew iron. It does block it up, but if this is good, you get better results basically. So like I was saying, I used to use a sharp sand or builder's sand in order to make the bed of my fires when I first got this forge. This is a bit tatty now, you can see this bit's rusted through and I think the chew iron's leaking. However, I quickly realised that within the space of a couple of days, just filling this completely full of coke, or your medium that you're burning, I tend to burn coke in the workshop. I use an anthracite as well from time to time, depending on what I can get hold of. But burning this in the workshop within a couple of days makes enough ash, which this is coke ash, to create a nice bed anyway. And once the coke ash is burnt down to this point, it won't burn any further. So it creates quite a nice bed and gives you that good quality clinker. So this forge is a side blast, so there's a piece of steel in here, a conical shaped piece of steel in here that's called a chew iron. This here's the throttle that controls the airflow, and the air comes from a blower that's underneath the forge. It comes through the bottom of the forge up into this tank here. This is a Bosch, it's got water in it, and this cools the chew iron so that you can run this a little bit hotter here, so the chew iron doesn't actually melt, because there's water in there. It stops it from melting away. And by melting I mean burning. So what we're going to do is we're going to prepare the fire. So I don't always do this. From time to time what I like to do is I like to clean the fire. It depends how much of a rush I'm in. But what sometimes is good to do, especially if you're using the coke as a medium, as a bed, is to produce a bit of a pot here, like a fire pot kind of, like you would have in a bottom blast. I like to take a round object and then just push the dust round onto the, just like so. And then once that's like that, then get some water, pour some water onto here just now like this, dampen this down. I'm just going to take an old hammer and just going to tamp that material down. You don't have to do this every time. I used to do it every time, especially when I was at uni. I used to do this every day. So a lot of people are going to be running bottom blasts, and you don't need to do this with a bottom blast. You just need to make sure that your clinker's out of your fire. Which I probably should have shown you me clearing this out, to be fair. All this coke on the side here is because I've just cleared this out. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to make sure that there's nothing obstructing the chew iron. Okay, today we're going to be burning two mediums. The first one I want to talk about is charcoal, and I'd also like to talk a little bit about blacksmith's coke, or sometimes referred to as foundry coke. So depending on your orientation on the planet, depends on how easy it is to get hold of one or either of these products. In the UK, coke has always been a central part of a heating fuel, or a household heating fuel. I'm led to believe it's either a nickname that was used during the time for coal, or it was an actual coal that was sold to households to use as a heating fuel. Coke is a coal that has been reduced. It goes through a reduction process, and that reduction process creates a cleaner and better burning fuel than traditional coals. Basically, both coal and coke and charcoal go through a very similar process. They go through a process of reduction whereby the material is heated up and then put into an environment with very little oxygen or no oxygen, and then the volatiles that are given off in that burning process make the actual burning materials better. So in essence, charcoal is exactly the same thing, but instead of coal, they start with wood. Let's open this up and have a look at this stuff. Okay, so this is willow charcoal. I believe traditionally charcoal was always made out of willow. I say always made out of willow, I'm sure it was made out of everything. But coppicing and the profession of charcoaling is the process of taking willow and turning it into charcoal. This stuff is literally just looks like burnt wood. And it's the same, it's almost exactly the same process to produce this as the coke. They get this stuff hot and then they suffocate it, and as they suffocate the material, it burns out all the volatiles and also all the moisture, which gives the charcoal a higher burning temperature and a cleaner burn, I believe, as well. Okay, so why the sudden interest in charcoal? Well, a good friend of mine, Alex Norton, over at Valhalla Iron works, go and check out his channel. He's a great guy. He's got a great Instagram as well. He did a good video on charcoal, and it got me excited to think about charcoal again. I find it quite difficult to get hold of charcoal, and then for some reason his video came out and then I stumbled across this stuff. Go and check his video out. He shares a lot of information in that video about charcoal, the pros, cons and stuff like that about charcoal. I'm going to be using this today, and I'm going to give a bit of an opinion on the charcoal as we go through the day, but there's stuff in Alex's video that I didn't even know, so go and check out his video. I'm going to use this charcoal now and see how we get on. I don't know if I'm just going to use the charcoal. I might do a bit of a charcoal coke mix today because I've got to get rid of this stuff on the side of the fire here. But okay, another really nice thing about charcoal is it's very easy to light. Coke, on the other hand, is a pain to light, and you have to use some sort of wood or a more flammable coal to get coke to light more often than not, or the propane torch. Some other nice qualities about charcoal. I believe that charcoal is carbon neutral, which means that because the plant's grown, it's used the amount of carbon that is created, so it doesn't create any more carbon in the environment. So God forbid if they do ban coals in the UK, which they're talking about doing, and also burning of green wood, charcoal could be a serious option to run in the workshop. So I thought I might as well, if that is going to be the case, they're talking about bringing that in the next couple of years, actually, next 2 years. So if that is the case, getting used to it now might be a good thing. I've worked with charcoal a couple of times before. I've worked with a gentleman who used charcoal.
Okay, it's nearly lunchtime, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time sorting these two bits of stock out to turn them into something to help me cook my lunch, and then I'll show you my next in the series of cooking things in the fall.
Okay, so I've just welded this plate onto the end of this bar now. Just using the MIG weld to do it. Doesn't need to be an impressive weld. It's just got to stay on there whilst we waggle it around whilst it's hot. So this is a toasting iron. I'm going to stick this in the fire. I'm going to get this to a nice red hot. And whilst that's going on, I'm going to start preparing the rest of the cheese on toast. Okay, for this episode, I've splashed out a little bit. I've got myself a nice farmhouse loaf from a local shop. And a very fine saw here. So what I'm just going to do, wash my hands. We went over this last time. Keep yourself clean. I've just got a bit of sapele here. I'm pretty sure it's wood safe. Right, take myself off a doorstep. Nice wedge. I'd just like to give this gentleman a shout out once again, Mr. Cassidy, Chris Cassidy Schroeder. He made me this knife when I first started the channel, and I'm not much of a knife maker, but this thing's lovely, and I use it a lot here in the forge, and he made it for this purpose. We were doing videos before where we were making food in the forge, and he basically made this little knife for this very job, so I could do silly things like attempt to make cheese on toast in the workshop. This is a mature cheddar. Okay, so what I've done is just toasted those up, those bits of bread, and now I'm going to add the cheese. Okay, so I'm going to have my lunch, or whatever it is. It's a bit after lunch now, but this is super simple, and it's probably safer to cook like this than it is to cook over the coke or coal or whatever. If you had charcoal, you'd be fine, and I would definitely recommend putting that in a gas forge as opposed to putting it over coke, because it's a bit cleaner. But I'm going to have this anyway. If you're enjoying me doing these cooking, please let me know in the comments. I've got a mate who makes frying pans, forges frying pans, and I might even think about doing some other, I've got a couple of other little ideas maybe that we can use up here to do different bits and bobs. My phone's ringing in my pocket. I should think that's me woman. Sorry about that, where was I? Yes, I've got a friend who makes frying pans, and I've got some other ideas to make some other bits and bobs, doing some slightly different things. So if people are interested, let me know. I'll keep doing these. Nothing special, it's not exciting food, but it is just a little bit of fun, and if you're enjoying it, I'm quite happy to take it up to a next level potentially, forge a frying pan maybe, and make some sort of like a Dutch oven sort of style thing. But anyway, yeah, let me know. I'm going to eat my lunch and I'll catch up with you in a bit. Okay, so these are the blanks for the rounding hammers that I make after they have been, basically put the trenches in, or the fullers, whatever you want to call them, and flatten the middle out, and then I normally punch the hole. But I tend to find this a bit of a pain in the bum punching the hole in these. As you start punching the hole, they start to rock over ever so slightly, so they're quite difficult to keep in the centre. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a bit of a play around. I'm going to try and drill this hole through the centre here. Now, if this messes up, I'll just make some more. I don't have a big issue with doing these. I've got stock, I don't really have time, but I've got stock. So I was just going to give this a go and see what kind of outcome we came up with. I think I'm going to try drill the hole, slightly drift it, and then try and clear the rest of the hole through with an actual hammer eye punch. But we'll see how we go. Before I go any further, why 8mm or 5/16? The short answer is that's the biggest drill bit, or the smallest drill bit that I felt comfortable pushing through here in one pass, and also
was going to reach and not break, basically. So that's why I use the 8mm. This is a new drill bit, however, I reground it so it was sharper than what it was when it came. This is a dormer, they're normally pretty good, but sometimes I find just giving it a bit of a polish before the drilling sometimes helps. And I've also cut a little bit of the web out so that the web's smaller, so that the impact point here was smaller on the web so that it could cut more material. I find that quite effective, so you don't really need to pilot with the drill bit like this if you do that. Is that good practice? I don't know. I'm not much of a machinist, but it works. I know it works. Two things I did do though to try and A, help with the drilling process, and B, make sure that when I did actually get drilled through, everything was nice and straight, was I ground a flat on this side, which I'd already hammered on under the power hammer, and then on the other side I did the same thing. The other thing was, I've got this 16mm slug punch here, and it will fit in here. I need to tidy that end up, but I've got a couple of smaller hand punches I can drive in a couple of times just to swell that open before I get this in, to then use the hammer eye punch to go through. So what Okay, does drilling a hole in a piece of material that you intend to become a hammer work as an option for creating the eye? Short answer, yes. Long answer is, it is a pain in the bum. This is very, oh, nearly dropped that. This is very, 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 very slow. And that's the eye there. I'm going to try and trick the camera to focus on that. Yep, that's the eye there. It works, it's right. This is a hideous hammer. I made a couple of blanks up a while ago, and I didn't quite do the measurements right, so there's a bit of a problem with this. Now, what's the problem with drilling the hole? The biggest issue is you waste a lot of material. This was done by punching, and it's exactly the same size starting stock. Can you see the difference? And how much more material I managed to pull out. Now, I'm not happy with this hammer. This is going in the bin, unless one of you maniacs want it. You can have it for a cheap cost a second. I'm not talking about the hammer anymore. But the issue is you remove so much material in the process of drilling the hole that you lose some of the material in the process of creating the cheek. So if you want these nice cheeks like this, you inevitably create yourself a situation where the hammer isn't quite right. It does work, and if you're not bothered about how the hammer looks, I'm trying to sell a product, so for me having the cheeks look a certain way is quite important. If you're not bothered, then drilling the hole is a good way to get the results that you want. Okay, a couple of issues with the charcoal. Firstly, is the size. This charcoal isn't broken up into very small pieces. It's good quality, it's very nice quality charcoal, and you can tell that it's like proper real charcoal.
But even pieces like this are too big. I need pieces more like this. And that means as I'm feeding the fire, I'm having to break stuff up, which is a little bit irritating. And I think this is responsible for the reason I'm not getting a good enough covering of my material, therefore I'm not getting a good heat transfer. So that's the first issue. I think this stuff is a little bit big. Is that a big problem? If this is the only stuff I had, no, it's not a big problem. I'd learn to live with that. The other thing that's a problem is my forge isn't set up to take charcoal, I don't think, because the blower itself is quite powerful. So I found that when I was using just charcoal, I wasn't using coke and charcoal at the same time, I was finding that if I put the blower on too much, it was just blowing loads of ash at me, and the ash from charcoal is a bit of a pain. It sort of spits and dances around and stuff in the air. So that was irritating initially, but it was just burning the material so quickly, and then it would get very light and it would blow all the fire out. So my blower's pain in the bum because it's a bit too powerful, so a hand crank would work quite nicely. And also, every time I was walking away from the fire, the blower's still on. It's burning this material away very quickly. Now, I only forged for an hour and a half with this, and this bag's almost empty. There's a little bit in the bottom. There's about a sixth of the bag remaining. And the stuff in here is either huge or it's dust basically now. And to be honest with you, that's too expensive. This bag of charcoal cost me £7.99, £7.99, and yeah, that's not coherent with a business model that I'm running at the minute. I would like to be able to do this and use charcoal, but if I'm going to be using that much, I need to work out a way of being able to control the blower, turning it on and off. But walking around the forge to get to the plug socket to turn the bloody thing off isn't practical. It would appear that you people at home are really enjoying these Ruff and Readies, and I'm loving making them. I thought a little bit about this one. Maybe this one doesn't feel rough and ready enough. However, I thought a little bit about the content that was going into this one. There were a few things I wanted to try. There was a couple of projects I had to do, so I thought, sod it, let's just make a video where we do those bits in my working week and put it together for you guys and girls at home. Okay, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for all your support. I don't want to get too gushy. I found this was laying around. It's still got part of the handle in it, and I'm going to use this to do the reforge hammer by hand. That's going to be quite good fun. We might need to make a few tools for that project, so I might build up some of those videos. That's probably going to come next week. Yes, I've picked someone to win the tongs, but you don't know it yet, and I haven't told them yet, and I won't have told them by the time this video comes up. So, ooh, one of you's won. So that's going to be good. A really exciting little project I've got for that. Someone had a really good idea, so they're going to win some lovely tongs. Whether they're not going to be able to use them or not, I don't know, but they definitely won some tongs. That's everything. Thank you again so much for joining me. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you are a subscriber, please ring those bells for ring that bell for notifications, because it tells you every time I make a video. I try to make videos as often as possible. We get about 2 a week at the minute, which is super exciting. Sometimes you get 3. I'm going to do a live at some time. I don't know if I spoke about the blower. I'm going to make a hand crank blower. I'm going to have drawings for it, which you can download and all that really cool stuff. Drop your comments down below, let me know what you thought of this video, ask me any questions you've got to ask me. We're probably going to answer those in a live. Other stuff, more important stuff, and then some stuff that I forgot to say, and all that goodness. Instagram, link in the description. Etsy, link in the description. If you want to win a raffle ticket, get a raffle ticket for the hand-forged hammer. I haven't got it right now, and I'm not going to get it. It's a rough and ready, one take, no fakes, remember? If you haven't got a raffle ticket to win the hammer, go and buy one. They're available on the Etsy, they're very cheap, and you win a hammer that I've made for very little money. Why am I talking still? The other thing is, if you buy anything off the Etsy, you get entered into the raffle. I will
Yeah, that's everything. I'm not going to talk anymore. Thank you so much for joining me for this fifth Rough and Ready. I do know how to count, and I know I've got four fingers and a thumb. Thank you for joining me for this Rough and Ready. I will leave a link up here to a video that YouTube thinks is best for you. This down here is the most recent video. I'll leave the previous Rough and Ready down here. Thank you for joining me. Goodbye. Bye-bye.